It's hard for me to get worked up about Chuck Schumer because he's just doing what Chuck Schumers always do. You know? Now, the Catholic Church has made it clear that we don't judge anybody.
Finally, let me finish where I started. 2 years after my daughter and her wife questioned if their marriage could be undone, they are now expecting a baby next spring.
Very touching, Chuck. Let me get this straight, though. You're trotting this stuff out right in the middle of the worst economic collapse in our nation's history. I'm sorry, guy, but your white privilege elitism is kind of showing here. Because like the poor people in my city, Chuck, they can't even afford food right now. Here's the headline, in fact, the morning newspaper here in my town. You see that? More Minnesotans visiting food shelves than any year on record. But if they starve to death, or if they freeze to death, at least they will have the comfort of knowing that there's no way in hell we're ever going to lose gay marriage in this country. You see, Chuck's not a Christian. Chuck's not even a practicing Jew. Chuck's whole point is to take Christian morality out of politics. That's what this is all about. Again, I don't even blame him. I blame the church. In one way or the other, guys like Chuck Schumer admit this every day, that they're at war with Christianity. The question is, where are the Christians? Where are the Catholics? Where are the mighty Catholic bishops? Just going to accompany Chuck Schumer to wherever he wants to take us? Is that it? What do you think is going to happen in the future, Your Excellencies, when Chuck's bill passes the House, which it's going to do? What do you think is going to happen to a guy like Ron DeSantis? What do you think he's going to be allowed to say publicly in defense of Christian marriage? What do you think he's going to be allowed to say publicly when they start rounding up Catholic school teachers, Catholic priests, Catholic bishops, the few who have kept the faith? We're defending God's definition of marriage. You see, that's what this is all about, friends. It's been all about this for a long time. Get the Catholic Church out of the way. You think they ever would have had a Defense of Marriage Act when Fulton Sheen was walking around, when Pius XII was walking around? You think? No? So what happened? Where have all the Catholics gone, right? This entire process is about gagging Christians, especially Christian politicians in the future, gagging moms and dads, homeschool teachers, Catholic school teachers, gagging Catholic bishops, the few that are willing to speak out, gagging anyone who might be tempted to defend God's law in the future. You don't think we're up against Luciferian powers here? You don't think we're up against the powers of hell? The whole point is to shut Christ up. But because the Catholic Church's new position is, who am I to judge? There's nobody there to stop them now. According to The Hill, most religious groups even, well, they've been terrorized into supporting the Respect for Marriage Act. Because even the Catholic bishops, the best they can say is, that violates our religious liberty. That's it. And Chuck says, I don't care. See, because the devil's never believed in religious liberty. So yeah, now you got polls showing that the majorities of most religious people in America support same-sex marriage, including more than 70% of Catholics and Protestants. Y'all still want to rip on the rad trads for being paranoid extremists? Thinking maybe there was an attack on the Catholic Church 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago? Really? It's the rad trad conspiracy theories. Because let's not forget, friends, what the final battle between God and the kingdom of Satan will be over, at least according to one of the four Dubia cardinals. Cardinal Caffarra, one of the four cardinals,
he was informed by the Fatima visionary, Sister Lucia, that, quote, the final battle between God and Satan will be over marriage and family. Quote, the final battle between the Lord and the kingdom of Satan will be over marriage and the family. Sister Lucia dos Santos, one of the 3 Fatima visionaries, confided to Cardinal Carlo Caffarra several years ago as he was working to found the Pontifical John Paul II Institute for Marriage and Family in Rome. So that'll be something to be very interesting to read and to put in context with now this latest warning that this cardinal, told by one of the seers at Fatima that in the end it's going to be all about the destruction of the family, is again now speaking out, begging Pope Francis to clarify, begging him to move away from this position, which is going to undermine marriage.
And meanwhile, back at the ranch,
well, the Russian parliament has approved a new law further restricting the rights of the country's LGBTQ community. Duma lawmakers unanimously approved legislation banning all forms of what it called propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations.
Lawmakers voted unanimously to give the bill final approval, framing it as defending Russia's traditional values in a war against the West.
To
the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken, here is the best reply. Don't try to impose alien values upon us. You destroyed your values. We'll see how this all ends.
stand with Ukraine. Now, don't lose track here. The Russians are the baddies, okay? And we're the goodies. Do you know up in Canada right now, there's a Twitter war going on between the Russian embassy and the little ferrets government, which has now condemned this Russian law? Now, that condemnation was signed by 33 members of the Equal Rights Coalition, a group of mostly Western nations dedicated to promoting LGBT agenda all around the world. Now, the baddies, the Russians, the Russian embassy up in Canada, responded to the little ferret's attack on the new Russians law with a series of tweets. I'll read a few of them now. I'm going to ask you to pay attention to the graphics that are included on the tweets from the evil baddies over in Russia. They say in the first tweet here, it's all about family. Family is a man and a woman and children. Now remember, this is Russia going up against the former Catholic country of Canada, which also got blindsided by Vatican II and the Revolution. The Church is no more Catholic than a monkey's uncle, right? Next tweet, please, from the Russian embassy. And yes, there are just two sexes, genders, a man and a woman, male and female. You can see that's Adam and Eve from Scripture, coming from the baddies. Last tweet. In Russia, you are free to be you and to protect your children from being imposed and imprinted by aggressive propaganda. I would draw your attention to the icon of Our Lady and the child Jesus from the evil baddies in Russia. Is there no wonder? Maybe we didn't get this right about who the baddies are and who the goodies are? Nah, because every day, Pope Francis, one way or another, he finds a way to support the proxy war against Russia that's going on in Ukraine, where Zelensky, by the way, has set up pride parades ever since 2015, as we've pointed out down here before.
In contrast to Soviet times, pride marches have been held in Ukraine since 2015. Police escorts are present thanks to President Volodymyr Zelensky's government, which backs free speech and assembly for the LGBT+ community.
Stand with Zelensky. Right, Francis? Stand with Mr. Green Tea. You know, we criticize what's going on in our church because we're trying to make, as I said a couple episodes ago, the word resist.